good to see everybody. You've got if you had your notebook, your stuff is in it. If you didn't, it's sitting at your table. And I know your notebooks are starting to get a little full, so we can either get new notebooks or you're welcome to discharge old stuff. I'll leave that up to you. We're streaming, so for everybody that's watching, that's good. Welcome. I think you know the drill. Out the door to the right if you need a restroom. If we need to vacate for any reason, down the steps, out the front door, and cut to the left. With that, let's go through our introduction so everybody can know who we are. We could make Henry go first, but he's fixing coffee. So we'll Pete.
Pete Bush's CMA Properties and Colonial Auto Center.
Chip Boyles with the Planning District Commission and NPO.
Morgan Butler, Southern Environmental Center.
Eddie Giles, Professional Movers.
Mark Graham, Albemarle County.
Tatiana Hujja, Camellas, Yusharasut.
Chuck Lebo, Lebo Commercial Properties.
John Nunley, Better Living.
Brad Sheffield, Albemarle County Board Supervisor.
Jim Talbert, City of Charlottesville.
Andrew Weinstein, Consultant, Express College.
Philip Chouquette, and we'll introduce the tech team. Well, we'll let Deb go first.
Debbie Messina with Philip Chouquette.
Dave Covington, Regional Transportation Program Manager.
Joel Denunzio, VDOT Charlottesville Residency.
Lou Hatter, Route 29 Solutions Communications Manager.
Ken Connors, VDOT District Construction Engineer.
Chuck Proctor, VDOT District Planning.
Stephen Davis, Central VDOT IT.
Stephen is our new guy that's keeping us up and streaming and be putting up our video going forward while Ken Ruff threatens to retire once again. We'll see how he does. Stephen, I wanted to let you know one thing. I did not, in the interest of saving a few sheets of paper, since I do email you the minutes and the minutes are up on the website, I did not print them again for you to put in your notebook. If you need them, they're on the web. If you need me to send them to you again, I'll be happy to do that. But with your concurrence, I won't keep printing them to put in the notebook. It's not many pieces of paper, but it's a few we can save. You can pull up the presentation, Stephen. Thank you very much, and go ahead and get us over to agenda item 2. Thank you. From our last meeting, our September 25th meeting, there were 43 viewers. Those 43 streamed 157 times and an average stream of 25 minutes, so it seems to be a stable crew tuning in out there. Go ahead to the next one. As far as feedback, we did get 4 comments through the email portion of the website. There's a total of 22 postings on that kind of interactive share your view piece of the website. There were no new comments. There were 3 new postings, and I think all 3 of them were me saying the RFP is up and some pieces of information. I did notice that out of the 22 kind of conversations on that website, 12 of them are me or VDOT. So we don't have a lot of interaction out there yet with the public, but the opportunity is there. I would continue to encourage people watching to use that ability if you want to engage. It's more one-on-one kind of, well, it's not exactly one-on-one. It's more conversation on the web piece itself. Again, I think the important part there is that we're providing the opportunity. We need to keep encouraging people to use it. The website is still undergoing some redesign. It will continue to retain that interactive feature. From the comments that were submitted, the 4 1 requested improvements to Route 29 south of Charlottesville and talked about the multiple driveway entrances on and off of Route 29. That's not part of our charge, but that comment's been recorded and noted. One asked whether or not these panel meetings were open to the public, and I would say again for anyone listening, yes, they are open to the public. They're not public meetings, and that just means that we haven't set aside time to take public comment at the panel meetings, but the panel meetings are open. They'll continue to be open. They'll continue to be live streamed, and videos and podcasts will continue to be posted. 2 people requested the addition of the multi-use path on the Route 29 widening project, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more later in our agenda. To review the schedule, that's part of our standing agenda. We've clicked off this page, getting us through the shortlisting. The next page, Stephen. Thank you. The RFP was issued to the top 3 firms, as you all know, on October the 2nd this morning, and Dave could maybe give us a little summary of this, but this morning there was a mandatory pre-proposal meeting with the 3 shortlisted contractors. There was also a utility information meeting that wrapped up just a couple of hours ago. Dave, is there any appropriate summary you can give us from that meeting?
Yeah, and this is a standard meeting that happens during the procurement process of any design build project that VDOT puts out. And it's a meeting where we are able to explain some things, express some thoughts about what's in the RFP to the offers to make sure that they understand what we've included in the RFP, to clarify any issues, and also for them to ask us a few questions. It was a good turnout this morning. All 3 teams were very well represented. They did ask some questions, some of which we responded to in the meeting. Others we will provide responses to either through the addendum or send out answers to those questions. We also had a dedicated utility meeting where all of the utility owners came in and were able to present what they possess in the corridor as far as utilities, generally where they're located, and just for people to meet each other and get contact information. So, good meetings.
Any questions for Dave? For the RFP process, or the procurement process moving forward, where there are questions and responses that are shared across all proposers, those will continue to be public information, but proprietary questions and correspondence between one proposer and VDOT are part of the procurement process and will not be public. So we'll do a good job of maintaining a public presence with what is public outside of the procurement process. What is considered part of the procurement will, for good reason, continue to be private, protected, whatever the right word there is. Next week, the design public hearings come up. The first proprietary meeting, and probably Dave did this for a good reason, instead of continuing to have other meetings the same day as our meeting, the proprietary meeting has been moved up a day. Some of you met my mother. She'll be 97 on October 22nd, so slip that in there. And the rest of our dates stay the same, getting us through the submission of technical proposals in early December. Go ahead, Stephen. And then this part of our schedule remains the same as we saw. The key dates here continue to be the notice of intent to award, CTD approval, and a notice to proceed. We'll continue to carry these dates, even though I realize they're redundant. I think it's important for us to keep keep track.
Phil,
of.
did you, one second.
Yes, sir.
Should we add this to the calendar since this has got VDOT's stamp on it as well?
We should. That's the October 23rd,
Which is a meeting on the same day as.
which is the meeting on the same day, and,
But I mean, we should probably.
yes, it's on the same day. I won't say anything other than that, but yes, it's on the same day, and we should add it. We will add it. We will add it. I don't know how many people received that. I understand it was hundreds, so several hundred people. It's a meeting on October the 23rd at 4:30, if I recall, inviting, I believe, primarily businesses, but it's an open meeting
After
to-
Jack Jewett.
at Jack Jewett, right. So I will take that into consideration as we craft our agenda for October 23rd. Go ahead, Stephen. Thank you. Panel recommendations. One that is still outstanding on the multi-use path. We know it can be added. We've got a little bit more information than we had last meeting. Adding it could reduce the median width to as narrow as 16 feet in some locations. Would certainly remove some trees from the median. It does increase retaining wall height an additional 5 to 8 feet, and increases the length of the retaining wall by about 700 feet. This is already a long retaining wall, right, Dave? About 6,000 feet long. So there are some balances here to make. I'll give you my own view of this. I think we should get the information, one way or another, to leave the option open of putting in this multi-use path. If we see a design and the panel decides that it's either too much of an impact on the median, removes too many trees, then we can go back to VDOT and the design builder and put the sidewalks back in.
So your suggestion we move forward with the idea of the multi-use path as, with the sidewalks being the.
I'm suggesting that unless we can make a firm decision by the 23rd, that we move forward with the multi-use path, and in that first design review, first plan review, right now we're dealing a lot with what we think we know. A design builder could come in with something that is within the approved footprint. We have to stay within the approved environmental footprint of the project, and let's see where the facts take us. We may have that information by the 23rd, and if we do, we can lay it out on the table. Our recommendation may still be to move forward with it and let the design builder come back with his first review. What I don't think we should do is kick it out based on being afraid of what it might do until we know what it will do. That's my view of it. Morgan?
Do you know for those areas that may only have 16 feet median, can you still plant trees in that amount of median, or is that just too small to do anything?
The scenario that we envision with that would probably be limited to small calibers, street tree type things in the median, but it's certainly an area that can be vegetated. Now, it would be a minimum 16-foot raised median, but also where there are left turn lanes, that would take up about 12 feet, so there would be a minimum of 4 feet. But we want to still have that green space in the median, not have a barrier wall situation. But we have to get away, we have to be careful with large caliber trees.
And one other thought that occurs to me, I think your idea of proceeding the multi-use trail and seeing what happens is a good one, but we won't know what design would be if we went with sidewalks instead. We won't have anything concrete to compare it to.
Our initial design included sidewalks on the east and west side.
Yeah.
And I think from that, we can get a sense of what the medians would have been and what the painting potential would have been and things like that.
I guess I think we've talked about adding this multi-use path, I think, for 3 or 4 meetings now. And in my view, we're at a point where we ought to use design build for what it can provide, which let the person that's selected give us their views so we have something to weigh. But we may be able to make the call by the next meeting. Let's just hold that. The architectural, I see I used the word review twice in 4 words, but the Architectural Review Board review, I sort of feel like we're at the same place, that we need to come to some recommendation that we can put a little sharper edge on it for Dave and VDOT as they move toward this November 6th addendum. We've found a railing, and we'll see a picture of it. We found a railing that is crash tested, and it is an open face railing instead of a jersey barrier. And I think, based on what I've heard here, that our preference is something that's open-faced rather than a solid barrier. This will tie into another discussion we've had, but I think we have an idea that we want to see some treatment on the face of the structure going over Rio. We know what we don't want in terms of a retaining wall. And I believe that, at least on other projects in the area, walls and barriers have used color similar to what's on John Warner Parkway or the McIntyre interchange. And I think that's where our head is headed. That's my perception. One of the things that Dave and I have talked about is that we can, regardless of the direction we give VDOT or request VDOT, we can require the contractor to cast some test panels that we can look at. That we could say, gee, we think this is what we like, and then look at them. We could look at a couple of treatments. We could look at a couple of color variations.
One thing I'm not totally clear with this is I understand what has been done on the Parkway and what's being done on the McIntyre change. But when Morgan presented those drawings, they had a lot of architectural design that included pilasters on a regular basis, lighting fixtures on top of the pilasters, right, so they were interrupted. And then, I guess, in between those pilasters, there comes the question, would it be brick or would it be something else? My question is, are you still retaining that idea of those consecutive pilasters?
The vertical,
yes.
Yes.
You're retaining
yes.
it?
Yes.
So it's just inside those panels created by the town?
Inside those panels, and I believe, we've got what Morgan provided in the RFP, but in this addendum, I would like to see us give it a bit more of some definition. It doesn't have to be the be-all, end-all. We can still look at some of these test panels. So if you look at the next, this is actually a rendering from Berkmar. And I know this isn't the easiest to see, but this is the railing that's crash tested. It's approved for the use that we would use it for at Rio as well as at Berkmar. It's open faced. This rendering includes some of the wall treatment that is similar to the renderings we saw from Morgan that could be used for the retaining walls, as well as on the face of the structure across Rio that would be visible as you drove through that underpass. Some of this is similar to some of the things that the city and county looked at as far as the noise wall, which we'll get to in a moment. The point that I think it's important for us to make is the panel is that we're not interested in plain and drab. We want something that fits in, and I'm not suggesting VDOT is either by any stretch of the imagination. We want something that has some connectivity, that can tie back to some of these other projects, and maybe is a bit thematic that can carry through to the other projects as well.
Then will the design builder contractor know in advance this is what they have to do, or do they have design criteria that they can change that's out of our bounds?
Well, what I'm trying to get us to, Chuck, is more criteria that's a have to do.
Okay.
Okay?
That's what I was hoping.
That's a have to do.
But just a point on that, the intent for the addendum that comes out on November 6th is to have a special provision that will become part of the contract document specifying how we want these walls to look.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But to get there, we've got to give them some points to
Are you going to
include.
discuss what city and county has recommended on ramp treatment?
On the ramp treatments, yes, we will discuss, we need to make some decisions that affect all of these. On the ramps, that's what we're talking, at least on the walls, the retaining walls.
No, I'm talking about Best Buy.
Oh, yes, Best Buy.
City and county agreed on.
Yes, we're going to talk about that. Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Philip, what about, I realize this is just a demonstration, but what about if you're, say, on the river, looking at the outer faces of this bridge? Would it be the same type of treatment?
It can be. Generally, that
Yeah.
it's a form liner, so it can be applied to both sides. Now, the question becomes, if it's a steel girder bridge, do you see the girders? I mean, likely so. Now, this bridge you would only be able to see that definition from, say, for instance, Flower Mills Road. It's going to be quite far from 29. So, yeah, you could have that same treatment on the outside.
My personal opinion is it should have the same treatment on the outside, because it's great to look nice for the cars driving by. But hopefully, the people that are looking at it the most are not people just in their cars. So I think some thought needs to be given to both views.
I believe this stretch of the Urbana is right south of the dam. It becomes a scenic river, so I think that would add some weight to what you just said.
Yeah, and it's not a problem for, the issue is deciding what we want to do. Doing it is not difficult.
So how do we get then to what you all need by?
Here's what I would like to suggest with your all's concurrence. That we go back to that we take these basic issues, including the lighting, and that we ask VDOT to turn it into a draft spec that we can then see with renderings or pictures where it's appropriate, so we have an idea of what November 6th is going to get here real fast, of what this November 6th addendum is going to say. That's how I would suggest we proceed, because we can look at a lot of pictures and talk about some ideas, but when it comes together in that spec and is in that addendum, then the winner is going to have that as part of their contract, and that's what we're going to be expecting them to perform. Does that sound reasonable? Mark?
You said lighting, so would that include Burkmar?
No, not lighting for Burkmar. There's not lighting on Burkmar, on Rio. I think we need a spec for the projects that we want this to include. The spec may be different for the different projects.
I was just trying to understand.
Yes.
But there would be lighting for the Rio Road interchange.
Yes. Yes.
And what about Route 29 north of the river?
We currently don't have any plans for lighting on that project. I feel that it's warranted.
Have to think about that one.
How about lighting on this bridge above the sidewalk? See that with a lot of bridges.
Right, but I think, and Joel helped me out here, I think you mentioned this before, due to the classification, and I think the county on roads like that doesn't normally include lighting on a roadway of that classification. That's what we're trying to stick with, whereas the urban nature of the Rio intersection warrants it. Much more prevalence of pedestrian, bicycle traffic, and so that does warrant it this time. Commercial nature of the area. But our part is still fairly rural for the urban area.
Let's craft this draft spec. Let's craft this draft spec. Let's let Mark think about some things here. And then we have something to comment on that's more definitive.
Who's going to craft it? I'm sorry. Are we crafting it or is VDOT crafting it?
The VDOT will craft the spec. If we try to craft it, it'll go south on us.
And then what input do we have?
Then we'll have this draft spec. I'll talk with Dave if we can get it before the 23rd. I'll get it out to you so we can collect comments and maybe have some feedback by the 23rd. But we've got to get it in time to get into this November 6th addendum. Does that sound fair?
And I'm hoping we can have before the 23rd. And the faster that we can agree on a approach right now, the better off we'll be in doing that. And part of these recommendations come from a lot of the bridges around the area, also contributing to the gateway to the city, and having a somewhat consistent theme coming into the city, matching John Warner and McIntyre. Also, there's been similar bridges constructed in, I believe, Louisiana and on the other side of the
I'm confident we'll have a draft spec before the 23rd. Okay?
Yeah, it will be helpful because I understand this is really an illustration of another part of the project, and we're trying to illustrate the retention walls in Rio, and although they have some similarity, they'll be different.
That's right. No, I agree. I agree.
There, what is a sidewalk here shrinks to 1 foot. So a lot of things are different, and you see all the lighting fixtures.
A lot of things are
the
different.
picture
A
from
lot
the
of
other
things are
side,
different.
which is the picture that Morgan had brought in. Yeah, you tried to do too much with one picture. In this case.
I'm trying to say, Henry, that it's not, we're past looking at pictures. We've got to get some words on paper for the projects so we can get something in this contract.
I was defending you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Go to, right there. There was a question or suggestion last week or 2 weeks ago that we delay the start of the Route 20 widening project past September 2nd when the Rio work will be finished. The decision there is that that's not going to be an RFP requirement, not because it's a bad idea, but because we're trying to limit the restrictions that VDOT puts on the design builder, but that doing that will be retained as an option once VDOT sees the schedule that the design builder submits, and just reminding us that the 2 lanes that are there, 2 lanes in each direction that are there now, will continue to be maintained during construction. And I agree with where VDOT is on that. I think that's a reasonable approach. Let's see what the schedule is, and if any overlap exists, what is it, and then we can make, that would have to be a careful decision at that point, once we have a schedule.
Bill, as the person who brought that up, I mean, your point last week and repeated today, the fact that those 2 lanes are going to remain open on the main line, Route 29, makes that, I think, less of a concern.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Restrict trucks from using hydraulic as a detour. A truck restriction is not enforceable without a formal study and action by the CTB. The Rio intersection work, and I think we're talking primarily about Albemarle High School and how it might be affected. The Rio intersection work that requires a detour is going to occur in the summer, but the feeling is that that area should be included as part of the cut-through monitoring that VDOT is going to do during construction. And if it becomes a problem, we could encourage trucks not to use that as a detour, but it would not be an enforceable truck restriction unless you did the study required by the code. That is a code requirement, as I recall.
I don't quite remember this conversation, but what trucks are we concerned are going to detour hydraulic? Because I assume the detour is the left turns that occur, and I don't see too many tractor trailers going down Rio Road.
It was a concern. I frankly don't remember who brought it up.
I think it was me.
I think it was. I think it was a question. It was a question. Yeah, it was a question.
With traffic, for example, some truckers hauling produce or logs of these dump trucks, and they want a quick way to get off 29. I'm pretty sure a lot of them will be taking that detour coming through there, a lot of trucks.
So we'll keep an eye on it. We'll keep an eye on it, not in the sense of keep an eye on it to say how big of a problem it is. Keep an eye on it that if it is a problem, figure out a way to address it.
I guess this would be trucks going northbound that need to be on the west side. If that's the case, that's Rio, hydraulic Rio is the quickest way to get there.
Right. The point the mayor brought up earlier. 2 weeks ago when we met, we were building plain noise wall, and I'm still going to say the Best Buy ramp, even though I'm trying hard to say Route 250 29 interchange project. 2 weeks ago, we heard that we were going to build a plain wall for the noise walls at the Best Buy ramp project. You guys said, can we reconsider that? We put a note out to Jim and Mark, and what VDOT said is if we could make a decision by today that they will change the spec in the advertisement that's going out on November the 10th for whatever the county and the city agreed on. And by golly, we're not going to build a plain noise wall. We're going to build a wall that they picked out of the noise abatement manual. Go to the next slide there. For those of you that are interested in neat terms, it's the Virginia dry stack, which you can use at a party without medallions or patterns, which I think is a very wise exclusion from your pick, with a color similar to McIntyre. The picture shows, the next picture shows the Virginia dry stack, not in that color. Go ahead, Steve. But it's just a stacked stone form that would be used to form the wall. The vertical the vertical panels and the cap would be in a color similar to McIntyre, and Dave's going to have to yank that spec from the McIntyre project, and it'll have some federal number 3672 dash whatever, or who knows. But I think, first of all, I'd like to thank Jim and Mark, and also thank the Board of Supervisors and the council for letting us for letting us give them a deadline, and taking that kindly. But I'd also thank Jim and Mark for working that through your respective councils and boards and getting a unified response back to us. We're going to end up with a better project, a much nicer looking treatment than we would have otherwise had. So, Dave?
Just out of curiosity, I understand the dry stack, I see the picture. What I don't understand is without medallions or patterns, what does that mean?
Mark, let's let Mark.
They had this big white circle in the middle of the thing, in the middle of the wall section there, and it had a place where you could put some sort of object that you thought characterized your area, seashell or mountains. I asked for my profile, but
Mark tried for his profile, it didn't work. There is Henry,
It's not in the picture anyway.
VDOT has a noise abatement manual that includes a series of treatments, and the top panel can be cast with an inset for some sort of a medallion or dogwood tree, or can be cast with the bottom section and the top section the same. And some of the medallions may be more attractive.
I was looking for the medallions.
Yeah,
where is that?
you have to go to their handbook on the
You
side.
go to the handbook and look at that.
Not in the picture you sent out, because you sent this picture out earlier, and
Yes.
I was looking and looking and saying,
Right.
why am I so dense? Why can't I see? Okay.
Assume the same treatment will be on both sides of the wall.
Yes, yes. But again, thank you guys. John, I think it was you that said, do we have to settle for that, or can we take another crack at it? We took a crack at it, and in 14 days we made a change.
You said you're on both sides.
Yes.
When we heard, there was a doubt about it. There was a doubt between both sides.
Both sides.
Really?
Both sides. So the people living on the other
I
side.
agree.
Yes.
I didn't.
We're going to do both sides. Unless I misunderstood what the city and county were.
We want both sides.
Yeah, both sides. We're doing both sides. And in all honesty, the cost differential, if any, is marginal. These are slip forms, and so that was good. Okay, Stephen. The Berkmar location hearing, and we can ask Dave for a little bit more, but to sum it up in a nutshell, 69 people attended, 44 people made a written comment, 3 people recorded some oral comments. Not everyone that commented on a specific alignment, but of those that did, 31 preferred alternative A, 1 preferred B, and 2 preferred C. Brad, you want to speak about last night's action at the
Yeah,
county?
just last night, the Board of Supervisors passed a resolution supporting Alignment A based on the public feedback that VDOT had gathered. Unanimous support.
And VDOT's intent would be to go to the October 15th, did I get that right?
October 15th.
October 15th CTB meeting for the formal location approval that the CTB has to give. And yes, that's one day after the design public hearings for the design-build package. Now, one could legitimately say, so you're going to have a design public hearing the day before you get location approval. And the answer is yes. And VDOT seriously questioned whether or not that was the right thing to do, and I seriously thought it was the acceptable thing to do in this case. But at the design public hearing, because it is the day before the location approval, VDOT will have designs for A, B, and C for Berkmar. So if for some reason the 15th ended up with the selection of a different location, that the design public hearing would have covered it. Now, I got to tell you, that's pretty low risk in my book. There would have been greater risk to pushing off approvals or changing the date of a design public hearing that we already advertised. So, hope everybody is okay with that.
If you refresh our memory, A and B, the difference was essentially on the northern end. One was going further to the west and one was further east. And I don't
Dave,
remember which.
yes.
Alternative A went further to the west by
Okay.
residential property.
Yes.
Okay.
Alternative B.
I know. Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for Dave on the Berkmar location public hearing?
Just one point
Yep.
here. We got on the CTV agenda today, so we are on the agenda for
Good.
15.
Very good. Very good. Very good. There again, I think everybody remembers, but the CTB is the only body legislatively and by code in Virginia that can approve the location of a route, which is the extent of that requirement in the code, but they're the only ones that can do it. Stephen? Dave, can you run through the next couple of updates on utility relocations for Best Buy and Adaptive Signal?
Sure. Basically, we have 3 weeks here for the utility relocations for the Route 250 and 29 interchange project. These are relocations in advance of construction, and they are closing the crossovers there in order to relocate those telecommunication utilities. It's a somewhat extensive process. It's a duct bank system, so in order to do that, it's a lot more excavation than just a normal utility line. But basically, this week, they closed the median there at the Comfort Inn, Raising Cane's, and next week, they will do the one at Holiday Inn, just to the north, and the following week, the intersection at 29 and Angus. So they've coordinated with the city, they have a permit to do that work. The city is going to take care of the signal for that work during that week of the closure there. Do we have another slide?
Yeah. Next one, Steve. Next one.
The adaptive signal relocation work, the work started early this week. They are performing all work that would require a lane closure at night from the hours of 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. So exactly what we would be requiring the design builder to do for the design build projects. The intent here is to complete all the signal communications work and upgrades between Hydraulic and Passion Square Mall on or before November 30th. And then they will go to the north and do some work north of the river, all the way up to Airport Road, as well as improve the communications for the signals along Hydraulic and Rio west of 29 in order to help control those signals during the MOT phase of construction on Rio.
What they're doing here, Dave, south of Hydraulic, will they have to continue to do that all the way north along 29, or is there already wiring in place that they can connect to, or how does this all tie together?
South of Hydraulic?
Well, what they're doing now is south of Hydraulic. When they're done with this, will they have to do the same thing north of Hydraulic, all the way to Rio Road?
Yeah, well, they will. I mean, there's two different things going on.
Will there be road closures?
There's the utility relocations, which are closing the crossovers right now, or for the Best Buy ramp project. They're only for that project. There's only 3 crossovers that need to be closed. So when they're done, 2 weeks from now, there's no more closure.
I didn't realize this was just for the Best Buy.
And then,
Okay.
at the same time, as part of the adaptive signal project, they're improving the telecommunications. They're tying into existing fiber lines, they're installing cameras, control systems for those signals, as well as additional loop detectors to help better handle traffic during construction. That's phase 1 of adaptive signal.
You saw a note from me, we did not start on the best foot for the adaptive signal project. The contractor, for whatever reason, thought it was okay to store some material on the back of Fashion Square, and it was not okay. And Karen, thank you for letting us know and letting the contractor know. I believe we got everything off of there. That
Actually, I didn't know it was the contractor. I had to call the phone number that was on the equipment to find out who that equipment belonged to.
Okay.
The person I called took all of my information but would not provide me with whose equipment that belonged to. So I didn't know until after 5 p.m. that evening, because that was about 1 in the afternoon, until the representative of the contractor came to our offices to let us know it was theirs. So
Okay.
evidently they received the call.
Okay.
But I wasn't able to notify anyone because I couldn't identify whose equipment it was. I knew it didn't belong on our property.
Okay, well, I apologize. It was, I'm not sure how upset you were. I know how upset I was to find out about that. We did get it off, so I understand before midnight that night. The contractor has now secured written permission to store that material at a food line, somewhere else. So we got past that and have made it clear that that pickup is not a reason to miss any of these deadlines.
I would just like to confirm one last time, what you're doing with South of Hydraulic is particularly for the Best Buy ramp, the adaptive signal timing telecommunications project. There will be no closures north of Hydraulic for the same type of project.
Nighttime lane,
There will be.
9 p.m. to 6 a.m. There's not going to be extensive excavation like there is there at Best Buy.
Yeah.
It's going to be much smaller, but the reason they need to do lane closures is obviously those loop detectors go across all the lanes. So you have to go out there and cut them in, and they'll close lanes and move traffic over at night. And then when they're done, they'll move them back over, and then they'll back up when they're completed with the loop detector.
That'll take about how long, do you think?
November 3rd.
That will take till November 30th for the first piece, and then it's really work primarily in the cabinets, I believe.
Well, in the cabinets, but they're also going all the way up.
North.
The adaptive signal project goes all the way to Airport Road. So they will go north of the river at that point, do the same thing. There's fewer signals up there. And then they're going to come back and improve the communication ability so that the Traffic Operations Center can control the signals on Hydraulic and Rio west of 29. Right now, they have no ability to control those signals remotely. That enhances MOT during construction, because if there's an issue, for one, they can see it on the cameras and they can manually adjust signals. Or if we call them and say, hey, we've got some traffic backing up here, can you put some more green time on the other signal, they can do it instantaneously.
Look, the adaptive,
Pete and then Brad.
Some of these, some of this work is going to happen in areas that the design isn't even complete on the Rio stretch, and then north of Polygon's Road with the expansion. We're tying into utilities that potentially could be being relocated. Is any of that being thought of?
They're not improving the signals right there around Rio.
Okay.
They're
There's
not.
no risk of us tying into utilities that we don't know whether or not they need to be moved.
Well, there may be a scenario, that's a possibility, but we've reduced that risk by strategically not messing with that intersection. Because during construction, during the heavy impact of that summertime period, that signal is going to be basically deactivated because of, the left turn movements. It won't help us anyway.
We're on the phone every morning with every morning. It seems like every morning, but well, we are on the phone every morning. But he's talking to the project managers for these other projects, which he's managing this entire program. Every Friday, every Monday, we're on the phone. I was trying to think of the report. We get a written report from all the project managers. Every Monday, we're on the phone with all the project managers to keep coordinating this work. I will tell you, in the words of an email from Mark Graham that we saw earlier, the plan is for 100% success. We'll come in here some days with unhappy faces. I mean, there will be things that happen as we go along. What we're looking at is trying to always think about the what if, and drilling that into the heads of the project managers and into the heads of the contractors. It doesn't do any good to say, well, gee, I couldn't put my material on Fashion Square Mall. Well, guess what? I don't care. You know, that's something that somebody should have thought about. So we'll continue to stay on all of these issues.
We have two more questions.
Yes, Brad had a question. And then
I thought the adaptive signal project was going to stop at Hydraulic Road.
To the south.
So
It is.
when you say the south, is it? I thought that was going to be the last signal that was going to be part of that.
That's correct.
Right, but so why would we?
I believe it was just extending a section of fiber line
Okay.
up to hydraulic.
I just want to be clear
Yes.
about that.
And it's like a
And
handful.
Angus signaling, that's why are going to be wrapped into what's being done north, and then we pick it up south.
right.
Correct.
Is that
Yeah, that's clear.
Karen?
Just a couple clarifications on that as well. What is the northernmost signal that's being affected and being worked on?
Airport Road.
Yeah.
Okay, and the signals then in the Rio 29 intersection will not be affected?
No, because they will not, well, two of the signals won't exist in the future. The Rio intersection signal will not providing that same communication to you because it won't be active during that.
What about the main signal from the mall across to where McDonald's and Shoppers World are places?
On the southern entrance, yes, they will have communication to that signal.
Okay, so there's stakes in the ground right now on that.
Yeah.
They stake the right of way.
And then November 30th, that is Thanksgiving weekend. What is the work schedule for that weekend?
Well, we've explained that they need to adhere to the same requirement that we put in the RFP for the design builders, and they need to finish before Thanksgiving. We want them out there during Thanksgiving, that holiday season.
What are their hours? Like, will they be working on the 27th, which is Thanksgiving?
No, they will not. They won't be working on Thanksgiving. We're not allowed to work in the right of way during Thanksgiving. That's a red holiday. I think we're.
More importantly, for shopping centers, will we be working that Friday after Thanksgiving?
Well, we will be
Usually,
open
no.
on Thanksgiving
Okay.
as well, so.
The specs don't allow weekend after a holiday.
Right.
So they have to be completed before the 30th then.
Correct.
What day will this be function? Is there a date?
Well, as far as functionality, you won't be able to see any difference. I mean, this is them having control of those signals at the traffic operations center. It's not. It's only phase one of the adaptive signals, which is getting communications to the signals. But actually, it won't be functional for that purpose until May of 2015 is when they'll go back, because they have to reprogram the signals and make sure to do some testing, make sure it's all configured correctly before it actually goes live.
So next May?
Correct, yes.
Sorry to beat this up, but you said that the interchange at Rio is not going to be part of this system, or they're going to come back and address those signals for the local lanes after the construction?
Well, that's part of phase two.
Okay, but it will get it, it's just after that, okay?
I'm sorry, I
just wanted to
didn't explain that very well.
There'll be new signals installed at Rio.
Yes.
Yes. The point of phase one and moving that forward was to use this system, to allow its use to help us through the construction period.
Well, it's not even the software, the hardware is not going to install cabinets.
Right.
But right now, they can't see, they don't have cameras on those signals, they don't have communication.
They being the operations,
operations.
traffic
So
operations.
this is just to give them the ability to reprogram the signal instantaneously, change the timing if there's a need to do that. Then comes when later, phase 2, once the projects are completed, the construction projects, things have equalized, they can come out, install the hardware in cabinets, and they may get a jump start on installing hardware. It won't go live, the actual adaptive project, until after completion of the construction projects.
If you look at the next slide, remember the schedule that we saw last week or 2 weeks ago where we had just the design build projects and we had those listed kind of linearly side by side so you could see what was happening when. If you look behind your presentation, we've actually expanded that. And Stephen, why don't we pull up that the one we said we might pop in right here. The PDF of the revised schedule, I think it was called. Yeah, right there. We added to 2014 to it. Can you make it big like it was there before? If we get down through it, you'll see that in addition to the design build projects, we added the Best Buy ramp and the adaptive signal work go into 2015. Just the next sheet. So now this lays out not only the design build projects, but also lays out the Best Buy ramp and the adaptive signal work. If you punch down just a couple of feet, you see the adaptive signal work wrapping up before June at the end of May. And Jim, what I thought is maybe at some point we can drop Hillsdale into the same.
Maybe after my meeting.
After the meeting you're going to have, we can drop Hillsdale into here, and we'll have a couple of pieces of papers that we can look around, and look at a month and a year, and sort of see what's going on where. All of this is going to change when we get a schedule. Well, we don't know to what extent it will change. When we get a schedule from the design builder, then we'll update this again. Because it does give, I think, it gives a heck of a good, at a glance, and admittedly very brief, but look ahead at what type of work is going to be going on through the months of any year. So we got that added, and then I'll continue to work with Jim on adding the Hillsdale work. Okay, Stephen, if you can jump back. That revised schedule is in your packet, and it is up for anybody watching. It is up under the meeting materials for today's meeting under October 9th. Utilities and stormwater, buddy.
Okay. We've had a lot of discussions about utilities, and we've looked at a lot of different things.
You may want to step out here and look at those. Got a couple of graphics in.
Let's go ahead and go to that first one.
Go ahead and go to the front.
Well, we've had some discussions with some property owners, and we've had a lot of internal meetings about what we're doing with utilities. It's one of the biggest challenges on the RIO project right now because there are so many utilities out there. We had a meeting this morning with a whole room full of utility owners, and stormwater is a problem. So, we had to find some solutions to these. We have the new regulations for stormwater to deal with, which are much more onerous and require more space. So what we've committed to doing for utility relocations at this point is utilizing the space between the existing right-of-way line and the building setback line that the county mandates, because obviously this area will be disturbed. There's no buildings on it. The only thing that's in it are maybe some smaller signs and utilities, and those signs can go right back and just be relocated temporarily, go right back into the location they're at now. On the plans that we've identified or included with the RFP, we have included these drawings. These are kind of zoomed in a little bit. I think probably all of you either already have drawings similar to this or have access to them. We've also identified 4 potential stormwater management locations on the plans. This is showing one here. It's in front of the mall, which is a triangular area there, and it also runs down alongside the road. Our approach to stormwater management is underground facilities. This is a lot of additional cost to us, but we don't want to impact existing parking. We don't want to impact existing features. These will be closed systems with structural tops. Parking can go right back on them in the same configuration. Landscaping can be replaced. Generally, from a maintenance perspective, manhole top, it can be accessed to clean out with a vacuum truck. So can we go to the next slide? This shows another location out in Mall Square. We've also are looking at a site there at the Taco Bell north of 29, north of the intersection. Next slide. And then also here in Colonial Auto's lot, in the corner of that lot. And again, we understand that this is certainly an inconvenience during construction, but the faster we can get this put in place, get the asphalt put back, paint the lines back, then your cars can go back on top of it. And nobody ever knows it's there. So that's the intent. That's the approach for stormwater management. Again, using the building setback lines along 29 and Pryor Road, those areas where we can for utilities, and minimizing our impact, looking for alternative solutions to stormwater. And we're continuing to look for alternative solutions to stormwater that are less invasive than these. We're also counting on the fact that the design builders, these guys are very smart, and they're going to come up with some ideas that we haven't thought of as well. So we're going to look at all those opportunities. I think, Mark, you had a suggestion also about looking at some ways to use some regional VMPs, and that's something that we're very excited in as well. If we can minimize impact, make improvements to regional VMPs is something we'll certainly look at and consider very strongly.
You're going to talk to his guy.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
We're going to get some.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Best management practice. So a BMP is some sort of treatment facility, and it covers a whole broad range of different things, such as basins or underground structures. So BMP is best management.
And that would be for the quality?
The new regulations are much more strict on not only quantity of runoff, but for quality as well. So we are looking at purchasing nutrient offset credits, which minimizes the amount of treatment that we have to do on site because we have very limited amount of space to work in. But we're also looking at some other
quality. The quantity you can't.
Quantity you can't.
You have to get that on site.
You can. It has to be in the same HUC, which is the hydraulic unit code. So if it's in, for lack of a better term, in the same watershed, you could. And we're trying that approach. I think we looked at over-treating stormwater on 29 widening to offset our requirement a little bit on Rio. But I think what we found out was they're actually in slightly different hydraulic unit codes, and by law we can't go outside of that boundary.
And I'm not a very smart guy, but there's something about the force with which, the speed with which that water is leaving.
So energy balance.
Energy.
Right.
And
Energy
so
balance.
that is in fact what has to be dealt with on site. You can't flood out the guy down the street.
Right.
And all of those, there's also a criteria that states that you can't dump more water into a stream than that water is capable of carrying. And that's been around for a while, but they've tightened the restrictions on that through the new regulations. So it's a big challenge. One of the things that we looked at was under the old regulations, if you had a project that is based on impervious area, asphalt, rooftops, concrete, things like that. Well, with the Rio project, we have about 96% impervious area project limits. in the end, after construction of the new project, we'll have about 97%. The old regulation said, okay, well, you have to handle that 1% increase in impervious area. The new regulations go far beyond that and say, well, you have to make up for the fact that this 96% area hasn't been treated in the past, so you have to treat it now. And it's the same requirement that the private sector has to deal with now as well. So it's a big challenge, and it's one that we're coming up with some innovative solutions. We're going to continue that process, even as we hand the project over to the design builder to finish. They'll continue to look at those.
Mark, what were some of the ideas that you floated?
Well, one of the things, and it took a while for us to coordinate, figure out if there may be some opportunities. There are 2 regional basins that the county has. One's actually just to the left side here at Colonial Auto on the
right here.
If you're driving by there, it looks like a big wide ditch, but it's actually a county regional stormwater management facility. And we think with some modifications, it may be possible to provide some additional capacity that VDOT could use. The other one is down on the south end of Burkmar, just before it comes into, ties back into 29. The county also has a regional basin there. It's kind of hidden. It's behind some buildings. But there may be a capacity issue, capacity there as well. So, you know, we're looking at it from the perspective if we can find ways to kind of help with this project that impacts these private properties that much less, that doesn't encumber their property for future development.
You have one at Rio Hill too, but I guess that serves property to the west.
The one at Rio Hill is too far. We can't get the water into it. However, there is a good point that there's another one below this. There's what we call a Woodbrook Lagoon, which serves that, as well as back on Hillsdale. There's a church basin that we may be able to. So we've identified some possibilities here, but it's too soon to really know if it's going to work or not.
And there's some, for instance, this site here would lend itself very well to a water quality and quantity component. And some of the others may have a quantity component as well, as long as we're not flooding out streams or ditches between the two. But one of the issues right now is these new stormwater regulations are so new that they don't provide a lot of innovative opportunities for us to retrofit basins. So we may try to work with the DEQ to understand better that if we take a traditional basin, we turn it into a bioretention basin, there is a water quality component to that. Nobody can argue that. But right now, it's not recognized as an improvement in the regulation. It should be, but it's just not. So as we continue to go through this process, we're looking for these innovative ideas. And I appreciate that, because it really is a possible situation where it can help us out. Yeah.
If you go back to the mall.
Okay.
One more. Would there be any possibility, I mean, that looks like an overflow kind of parking, and I know you don't want to take away parking, but that you could use some type of a green cover that could still support parking? Just, I mean, it seems like an opportunity to take away some asphalt when you're doing this.
We like asphalt. I mean, there are some options. Now, certainly, we would work with the property owner. We would leave that decision up to them.
Yeah, I think that's, I don't believe, I don't want to speak for VDOT. I don't believe VDOT's going to buy right away and convert it to a different surface.
Real quickly, there are a couple of other options there. There's the interlocking blocks and things like that that are more porous.
Yeah,
that allow for infiltration. There's some opportunities there. I don't think we want to get into any type of porous asphalt.
That's somebody's parking space,
Yes.
not yours.
But that's not our decision, so we want to work with the mall to, have it be their decision, not
Sure.
ours.
I mean, it would have to be win-win, but I'm just having to guess, not to take it away, the parking, but how often is that parking used? And if a better surface could still support Thanksgiving and Christmas shopping season.
Actually, Bell's employee parking area.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And there again, if it's used a lot, it kind of negates that whole option.
Okay. Duly noted. Henry?
I understand that these areas you identified are preliminary and you might find some better options. They may move around or disappear because Mark got you something that you didn't know you had. However, just imagining, I'm the Taco Bell operator and I see this blue line and essentially you're telling me that you want to come in and do some major excavation that will last approximately.
Well, it depends on the site and what's on the ground there, but we hope these things can be installed very quickly. It doesn't take long to dig a hole.
Quickly is, what
Let's say a couple of weeks.
Couple of weeks. So for a couple of weeks, you're essentially, my drive-through may be still working, but the people want to go and eat in the store, they will have to be told to go somewhere else.
No, I mean, obviously we're not telling anyone.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm putting myself in the shoes of the Taco Bell operator, and that's what I would see if I was in his shoes. You're telling me that for 2 weeks, only my drive-through is working, and people cannot park on my side. That's what you're talking.
I mean, this is
assuming it happens.
This is preliminary.
Yeah,
I think the answer is yes, Henry. That's what they would be.
Okay.
Yes.
So
this will not appear overnight.
Okay, I understand that there'll be talks and negotiations. And the next question I have is, would you compensate the operator of that business and say, well, if we're going to lose so much business, we'll pay you so much?
Well, we can't make direct payments to that. I mean, if there's no evidence, there's no proof, we don't know how much business they're going to lose. We can't just
Well,
say,
he can tell you.
Here's a check.
He can tell you.
Well, maybe after the fact, but I mean, that's just.
Probably you can estimate before the fact and then tell you after the fact.
I know, but we have to work within the
Chip,
state law.
aren't some of those issues what you're trying to consider as part of your group? It would be disingenuous for us to say there are not going to be difficult times, and some people are going to have harder times than others. I mean, I don't know any other way around that. I think it's a responsibility of VDOT and the team to try to, identify what those might be, minimize them as best that can be, mitigate for them where mitigation is possible. But I think in some, is the situation you said, the answer might be yes, for 2 weeks.
And
does VDOT have the right to demand it?
Demand the use of the property?
Yes.
VDOT does. I mean, there's eminent domain. We don't want to get in that situation. But if it comes to it, we can. There's no other option.
so it is either,
So if small businesses along 29 don't wish to give up their parking lot area, you will take it from them.
That's not what I'm saying.
No,
We're gonna
wait,
work-
time out. Nobody has made any threat of the use of eminent domain. Does it exist? Yes. I think that if everybody decided they weren't going to cooperate in any way, shape, or form, that would increase the likelihood of the use of eminent domain. These guys have looked at some preliminary locations. The contractor's going to look at preliminary locations. Last night, Mark, it was last night, wasn't it? Yesterday afternoon.
This is where I earned my salary for the year.
Right. Mark put some issues on the table that are going to be looked at. You know, it would be wrong to show nothing and say, well, we're just going to go figure this out and then we'll tell you about it. But these are possibilities that have been looked at for handling the stormwater management issues here at Rio.
It would be wrong as a panel members to be responsible and not question what
I agree.
responsibilities down the road.
I agree, I agree. I agree.
Especially considering you have an informational meeting.
I agree.
In 2
Yeah,
weeks.
I agree.
And if I'm the Taco Bell guy, I'm going to ask you all these questions and more.
Well, everybody should.
And so far, I may have misunderstood. Initially, you will, and I'm Taco Bell, you will come over and say, this is what we want to do. And when I say, well, will you compensate me? I think I heard Dave say, no.
Well, VDOT, under the law,
Yeah.
cannot compensate a business owner directly for what they estimate to be loss of business. They would be compensated by purchasing the easement.
Okay.
If
So
that-
well, that's the question.
Yes.
So you will offer, without using eminent domain, to purchase an easement and pay me for the easement?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Everybody gets paid for it.
Negotiable within reason.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So,
Whether that takes a parking spot or not.
well,
If there's an easement for private property,
okay.
Yes.
that's compensable.
Because, part of our function is to tell our fellow
Sure.
businessmen, if they ask us,
Sure.
to the best of our knowledge, and to the best of our knowledge, he could then say, okay, you're going to need this for 2 weeks. I will lose X amount of business. And if he has good statistics and so on, he can probably do it. And then say, yes, it's fine, but please pay X dollars.
Well, I think,
And that will be the payment for the easement?
well, the purchase of the easement,
Yes.
first of all, there's a very, very strict process in place for acquisition of land. And we have to also deal with the federal code of regulation. We're using federal dollars to construct this project.
You're scaring me, I'm a small businessman.
No, I understand.
You're scaring me
So,
big,
I'm just
intimidating me.
Putting the baseline out there. We have to stay within the law.
Yeah, I understand.
There's no question.
So,
Now, prices are negotiable, obviously, but we have to be reasonable. Now, my understanding of new regulations is that, claims for lost business, they're handled later. They're handled
I'm
later.
not talking about the claim for lost business for something you did outside of my property. You're doing something on my property. So I can go 2 ways. One is, I think you have very deep pockets, and I'm asking for $500,000. That's ludicrous. On the other hand, the honest thing and the fair thing would be that I figure out how much business I'm going to lose, maybe mark it up by a few percent, and then say, this is what I'd like to get paid.
Well,
Would that make sense?
I'll tell you what, I'm not a right-of-way agent, I'm also not an attorney.
That's all right.
But we can talk to those folks and see what they say about that. But I know that we do have to be careful.
VDOT has some limited negotiating abilities. There are negotiating abilities. They are fairly controlled because there was a time that some of us remember that was not a very good time when some public bodies made very lucrative deals with property owners and not always the best of motives. And federal laws were passed that put some restrictions on the ability of how a DOT or anybody using federal money can negotiate a settlement. In other words, I can't go offer Chuck a big load knowing that.
Okay, I understand.
You know what I'm saying.
You can't be Santa
So,
Claus.
yeah, it can't be Santa Claus.
That's,
Right,
I'm just a business owner,
right.
and I would want to be compensated fairly.
Yes,
But when I hear you talking,
Yeah.
the first thing I hear is that I'm going to need more money than just for my lost business during construction on my side in that easement that you want to have for me. because I also have to hire some fancy lawyer to negotiate.
No,
Because-
no,
that's-
no.
I heard you very clearly.
No.
All these laws.
Okay, I don't remember saying hire a fancy lawyer.
No,
I don't remember hearing Dave say that,
I
Henry.
said it.
Henry, I know what you
And
said.
I say it
Okay, and I
because
appreciate what you say.
I hear.
But enough of saying what somebody else said. Here's what the deal is. Will every property owner be pleased with the outcome? I'm betting the answer is no. It would be nice if it was different. But VDOT, for an easement that removes the use from a property owner of not just the physical part of the property, but removes the use of certain property, can negotiate within reason for that loss as part of the temporary easement.
I understand that, and I understand you can't be Santa Claus, and I would prefer that you bring up Taco Bell rather than.
Bring it up.
Yeah.
Well, while this is a good conversation, I'd like to try to get out of here at a reasonable time. If this is something the panel wants to discuss further, I think we should add it to a future agenda.
I have one quick question. Do these things break in the future? You have to come back and re-excavate again, or once it's done permanently?
They have to be maintained.
They have to be
The
maintained.
maintenance of the underground facilities.
So it's
is
not just the
expensive.
year 2015, it might be 2020 and 2025 and
No.
2030 and...
This is comparable to a retaining wall that's there for 50 to 75 years. Now, you have to, from time to time, pop a lid off, put a hose in, suck out the debris with a vacuum truck, and that's the maintenance aspect. They don't have to be dug up and replaced every 10 years. or
It's
50 years.
pit cleaning like at the car wash.
What do you know
I have
about
an
that?
interesting question, Chuck, and can they build on top of this stuff?
They cannot build a structure.
Yeah, would not be
They
able
can
to build
put
a structure.
signs, parking, things like that.
And if you look at Taco Bell, look how substantial it is for that operator.
Well,
It's very substantial.
we could also look at Taco Bell, and here's the property line. This is not their parking. I'm not minimizing the impacts. I'm just saying, the parking is not,
He has parking there. I don't know how he got it, what the deal he did with the other property, but he's there.
Okay, we're going to move past this.
Okay.
We looked at 4 sites that VDOT has identified as potential sites. Okay, because VDOT has identified as potential sites. Design Builder will also look at the same issue. In the meantime, we're going to be talking with Mark, who's offered something that may change this rather dramatically. And that's the end of agenda item 10.
While this has a negative impact on businesses, I will say one of the top #1 things that are talked about when I bring up stormwater, Harrisbrook, Woodbrook area, is the runoff that comes from the intersection and Lowe's and all that area down into that area. So I assume this is helping mitigate that.
Who is it you talked to?
Any resident community in Harrisbrook
many?
HOA. Recently, we dealt with a stormwater issue between the 2 lakes, and this came up during that. When I went door to door, it came up.
The doors did you mention?
Thousands of doors.
Oh,
Would you
wow.
like
This
to-
this is a big problem for the county. It's
Yeah.
been a big problem. It will stay a big problem.
Yeah, VDOT, the impervious area that's being treated here has zip to do with the projects that we're building. Zip. The reason they have to treat it and spend your money and everybody's money that's out there is because there's a law now that says they have to treat, and any developer, I think, has to treat not just the increase in impervious area, but the total impervious area. There would be others who would come to a meeting like this and say, wow, what a benefit to the area. There would be some who would say, this is terrible because I'm not going to pick on Taco Bell, but I am going to go there and eat.
Well, I just put it up as an example.
It is a good example because they will not have use for some period of time
And
of the parking space.
And for a small operation like that,
It's important.
it is critical. Now, my friend Pete may be able to accommodate you a little bit better because he has a much larger facility. And Karen here next to me may also be able to accommodate you a little bit better. But that particular type of business, I can see that they're going to sweat bullets.
That's a good comment. That's a
If you
good
can move
comment.
it somewhere else.
That's a good comment and a good observation. We'll go from talking about cost to even spending more money. The RIO incentive, which is part of the RFP and part of what you can see in the RFP that's posted out on the site. Go to the next one. If there was a lot of work that went into the development of this incentive package. It could be viewed as complex on one hand, but the long and short of it, and why I really wish that while I'm grateful to be working for VDOT, I would really like to be on the other side of the table on this. There is an incentive worth $9 million. It's part of the project budget. I can't remember if one of you all asked me that. Somebody asked me, was that part of the project budget? That is part of the project budget.
The entire project or prior to 29?
It's one project budget.
Well, no, this is, the $9 million is part of the RIO budget, but there's another incentive as well, as part of another.
On other parts of the project.
But the contract price is going to be for the package, for the design build project.
But I guess the question is, out of $81 million, do you automatically subtract 9 as being budgeted for the incentive?
Or do you add 9?
Well, the estimate and early estimate for RIO was 81 million. He's not going to talk about what estimate they may have in-house.
No, that's fine, but
Now,
I'm just asking.
that would be
is the
part of
9
it.
million part of it?
Part of it. That's part of it.
So it's 72 million.
If you wanted to use the 81 figure, it would be 72. Yes, it's part of it. To get that $9 million, the contractor would have to meet a series of milestones that are listed in the RFP by June the 28th. 30 days and some change. If they meet those milestones, they would get an incentive payment. If they meet the milestones and request the incentive, which I have to think they would remember to do, they would get the $9 million. If they finish on the next day, they get 8. And then it decreases to another milestone of August the 5th, which is 6.8 million and some change. If they miss August the 5th and finish on August the 6th, they drop $5 million. And this is serious business. It's not like, gee, you almost made it, so let's go ahead and give it to you. You either make it on the milestone date or you don't. If they get out of there like we are squeezing them and want them to, there's still a $1 million incentive for September the 2nd, and then it drops to becoming a penalty and is no longer an incentive. And I don't remember the per day, $37,000?
For this scenario, $37,000.
I think $37,000.
And it's a liquidated.
Yeah, liquidated damage. Sorry.
And
Use the right term for all the
31 per day before and 37 after? Yeah.
Yeah, in terms of how this is reducing.
Yeah, because
Yes.
it ends there and you don't see it.
Right. It is there and goes below the line.
Per day for how many days?
Until they get it open to traffic, indefinitely.
Yeah,
Definitely.
yes.
Well,
The-
just on-
The next, do you have any questions?
One question.
Yes.
Assuming they finish it on the last day, there's no penalties, but no incentives, and this is roughly $8 or $9 million,
On which last day?
where they can receive no incentives.
There's zero, September 2nd.
September 2nd.
Right.
That $8 million, $9 million, whatever it may be, stays in the Solutions 29 budget so that it can be spent somewhere else then?
Probably not. No, probably not. Because it either needs to get spent or it goes back into the money that the CTD allocates.
There's still a couple more projects.
There's still a couple more projects that may need it, but it's not, oh, we can do more now. That's not the way it works.
Believe me, I hope they
Yeah.
get every penny of it.
I hope they get every penny. I hope there's more people out there thinking of solutions than there are excuses for not making it on those three teams.
Sorry, to follow up, that's the first project due to be completed. Potentially, they'll be, really doubt it will be there, but there could be $9 million hanging out there.
Yeah.
And we have two other projects at that point underway.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That may still run over budget.
Yes.
Can we,
Yes.
is that $9 million still not in the hopper for that?
That's why I answered Chuck's question the way I did. I think
I wasn't clear.
the right way to look at it, I believe, Dave, is there will be a price to execute this design-build package of projects. $9 million could get spent in an incentive or within the execution of these projects, as they're defined, it could get spent somewhere else. But let's say they all finished on the money, but whoever did this didn't get the incentive. That doesn't mean you could do $9 million worth of something else.
I understand, but
Yeah.
I mean, inside the
Yes.
project.
Yes,
it
yes,
can be moved.
yes. It's in the budget for the delivery of the three projects in that package. The difference here is, from a business point of view, if you get this, it takes a fast trip to the bottom line.
But I don't think it can be used on Berkmar. It's federal money, isn't it?
Berkmar is 100% state funded.
That's what.
So only
Because
state
of this
money,
requirement,
only
you can't
state
do that
money,
$9 million.
yeah. This has been approved by the Federal Highway Administration for the incentive package.
The term budget is different than contract value.
I'm just.
Yeah.
A big chunk of money not to use. But
Hopefully it gets used here.
I think it might, a big chunk of it at least.
Yeah. On the package of projects, and looking at the delivery of the package of projects, go ahead, Steve. There's, and Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, there's an additional 1.3 for finishing everything by July 1, 2017. So you could get your 9, you could get your 9 at Rio, and you could get 1.3 for finishing all of the projects by July 1, 2017. And then that trails off at a different rate to October 30th, which is the deadline for finishing the package, and trails off there again as liquidated damages. If the contractor chooses not to do Rio in 2016, there's no incentive for Rio. You have the same restrictions. First day after final exercises, first day before the first home football game, but no incentive. So if the contractor doesn't pursue Rio in the incentive package in 2016, has to finish within the same window in 2017, no incentives. They're going to do it in they're going to go for it in 2016. I feel very comfortable. Any questions about the incentives? The detour we talked about, I think, the last meeting. Go ahead, Stephen. And unfortunately, the line's over there. Is that Hilton Heights? Joel, is that Hilton Heights? That's Hilton Heights, yeah. We said we'd show you a detour. Would this be a signed detour? This would be an official detour for the project.
Well, it would be an optional route, though. I mean, we're going to maintain those lanes on 29.
Right, yes. An optional detour. It's still going to maintain 2 north, 2 south on 29 widening. Going to maintain 3 north, 2 south through here outside the restricted period. Within the May 23rd, September 2nd restricted period, 2 north and 2 south are maintained. Correct? On 29.
Yeah.
On 29.
Yeah.
Have there been any studies done to show how many more vehicles will be on that road than what there are now?
We haven't done any studies on that yet. Yeah, quite honestly, how do you pick a percentage of vehicles that would leave 29 to go on to Burkmore? I mean, we can make a judgment call, but we haven't done a study yet. There will be a study done, and at the latest by the design builder as part of their transportation management, how they're going to maintain traffic.
And we will have the model by the end of this month that could be used for that.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Right. So we talked about that, I think, maybe 2 meetings ago. There will be a project-specific traffic model that's being developed that can be used to model conditions with the summer counts and the fall counts that were just taken in August and September.
Now, during the summertime period, it would be signed for use for folks who would want to make a turn that is not available to them
Right.
at the Ryer intersection. We would have a route for them, so how they can get around the work zone.
Just between May and September 2nd, this closure would be permitted as well, or prohibited as well as the left turns. And this, at the very bottom, is where that temporary signal would be that would allow the left turn onto Burkmar as well as the emergency access that you brought up a couple times.
Just a couple.
Yeah, well, I mean, good.
You also brought up, are you going to pave Burkmar before you do this because it's in pretty rough shape?
Yeah, we need some clarity on
Especially
that.
inside.
That road is pretty rough.
Joel, you're going to pay Burkmar?
Maybe by shoppers.
That would be about half, $500,000 to $600,000.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
$500,000 to $600,000 to pave that section. It's a 3-lane section from this.
Is it on your schedule, do you know?
I don't have it on the schedule.
Take that 9
Why don't
million
we-
and make it 8.5. You can take that 9 million and make it 8.5.
Are you saying paved before, or?
I'm talking right now, there are potholes that you have to dodge around by Shoppers World if you're going towards 29. It's been that way for 5 years. My office is on that road, I'm on it every day. And you swing out to the lane, if traffic's coming at you, you've got to hit the pothole. It's just they keep throwing patch over it, but it's a sinkhole or something. And they need to repair it.
Can we have somebody
Drive it
take
the
a
other
look
way.
at it?
We're not going to have somebody, we're going to have Joel take a look at it.
Because if we're going to detour traffic who
Yeah,
want to take a
let's-
left off of 29 onto Rio West.
Let's take a look
Is
at
it an
it.
area that keeps sinking out there?
They patch it every year and it just, a month later, you're dodging.
It doesn't pop out, it just goes down.
Right, it's the asphalt.
Let's take a look at
slides.
it.
I'll show it.
We'll take a look at it before the next meeting, okay?
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Any other questions on the detour? Okay. New business and wrap up. Dave, I don't believe we have anything new on the Rio rendering.
Not yet. We'll be
Closed, but
late, probably tomorrow or Monday.
how about the fly-through?
Same thing.
The same thing, okay.
For use during
What,
public-
what VDOT has some of their folks doing is using the recent traffic counts and modeling, update the traffic flow, take that Bissell model and put it on
Yeah,
the better one.
If we're making, we had our comment
Right,
on that
right.
fly-through in the rendering, which was the
Right.
static image of the fly-through that they're working on. It's a slow process, they're full file.
Yeah, that is a slow process. Look, on, Karen, you're right. The panel wouldn't be doing their job if you didn't bring up hard questions. I do think sometimes the inferences are maybe more harsher than is fair to VDOT. But better to be harsh and ask hard questions that make us think about things like taking leaving a business with just a piece of their business intact. I wouldn't want to be in that situation either, without getting some kind of clear response of what does it mean. If it means something terrible, tell me that, and so I understand it. But if I have some recourse, I need to understand. I understand that as well.
Business is not going to receive a windfall. Apparently,
Right.
from what you tell me, in old days, some got windfall.
Some did.
And I can understand that it shouldn't be a windfall. I'm just asking for fairness.
I think it would do us well, Dave, I think it would do us well to talk to right away. And I want to balance something here between saying, oh, it's these 4 spots because we showed them to you, when we really don't know yet exactly where the locations may be or what might work out with the county. But I think it would be good for us to come back to a meeting and say, here's how this process works. Here's how it works. And in all honesty, we need to do that before the next meeting, because that night have invited hundreds of people to come and ask those kinds of questions.
That comes in.
So we'll do that. Let's see if we can get an understandable description of how that works.
Overview.
No,
of
I agree.
How the process
I agree.
works.
I agree.
So that if I own a business here and
Yeah,
there's a chance that you may need to put this big water tank under my lot, that I know how it's going to be handled. And then there's the other thing I'd like to talk about this meeting that's coming up, which is that there is reference here made about impacts, business impact. We really never talked too much about the economic impact. I did hear things like, well, we do something with the sign ordinance. You know, that's like telling a terminal ill person that he can smoke and drink all he wants for the next couple of weeks. The issue is what's going to happen after, and I have done a little bit of homework, and I took this diagram and converted it into a diagram like this that shows the traffic numbers, just the same that are here, from before and after. And I think businesses that are located in these quadrants should know what that number is, because it comes straight from here. And back then, you mentioned that these numbers are never 100%. I agree with that. I'm an engineer. Everything is plus minus something. Okay? But and the after numbers may not be exactly the same either. but this is my best shot at it, so I like to distribute.
From the 2014.
This diagram.
Free to distribute.
And I would also like to see that, unless you prove me totally wrong, that.
Which I'm anxious to do.
Yeah, I know.
No,
I know you're working.
No.
I've been wrong before.
No, I'm teasing you, Henry, I'm teasing you.
I thought you were wrong.
That I did my homework, and these are facts. Now, without going into if they're fair or unfair or whatever, people ought to know. And this is really what I'm saying here, is that this diagram should be presented at that meeting.
I don't think it should,
Well-
because I think a diagram should. I still think you're looking at that number wrong.
I don't think so. That, we
Okay,
can sit down.
okay, because I believe,
Talk about it.
I think your number, and I'm looking at Hess gas station,
Yeah.
I think that's left turns plus right turns. And
What's left? Yes.
and not including any of the traffic that would go through on the local roads.
Why would anybody want to go straight through that
I'm not
traffic?
I'm not smart enough to know why somebody might,
There's going to be two guys.
but I'm smart
Maybe
enough to
three.
know that all four lanes aren't going to squeeze into the two.
Right, unless you're telling me that this thing is so under-designed that people will overflow, and then we're really talking about what is this project really accomplishing. Now you have opened up a much bigger issue, which I wasn't prepared to discuss it. But if you say that it's going to overflow, and therefore it's going to be okay.
See, Henry, maybe this is where our communication isn't the
Yes.
best, and I'll take my responsibility for that. I didn't hear me say overflow.
Okay, if it's not overflow, why would anybody want to go through
I don't.
that traffic light?
the-
I wouldn't,
the-
you
the-
wouldn't.
Someday that wisdom may pop into my mind. It's not here today.
Yes.
Should a diagram be presented that's easier to look at than the one we did? I think it should. I think we should split that traffic up by lanes. I don't think this is what we would show or come up with these numbers.
And maybe.
So if you like this form, and we can talk about what the numbers might be,
Well, you will
I
have
think
to-
that's fine.
You will have to tell me what rational basis you're using to come up with different numbers. Because I think my analysis
Well,
is
thank you.
straight from these numbers.
Thank you. I don't think it is, but
And
thank
I
you.
did a spreadsheet just to check my numbers. Just in case
Well,
Okay.
then it's bound to be correct.
Just adding numbers from this.
I got you. We will have appropriate information that can be backed up in our displays. We'll take a look at that form of presentation. I think we should look at not just 2014, because the point of that thing 2 weeks ago was really to get a better idea of what might happen during construction, right? 2018. Well, or whatever. The numbers I think we looked at last week were, maybe they were 2018. I thought they were 2014. But we will look at that.
Those are 2014.
I think what we should be trying to do is present information as factually as possible. If it's good, it's good. If it's bad,
I agree.
it's bad.
I agree. That's why I made an attempt to show factual information.
All right.
Speaking about factual information, there is one more thing.
Yes.
We're wrapping up.
Yes.
We had continuous U-turns on the bridge.
Yes.
And we were told that because of the continuous U-turns, we were able to make the intersection work. Then we got another drawing where it wasn't very clear, and the bridge, it was reported that the bridge had been narrowed.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering that there was not enough detail. At the last meeting, we had a simulation, and only after I left here, I realized the simulation showed me that the continuous U-turns were gone, which brings up two questions. First of all, is the intersection still working? A, and B, when we were told that this narrowing, simplifying of the bridge had been accomplished, we were never told the continuous U-turns were gone.
There's a reason for that. That's because they're not gone, and we never said they were.
In the simulation, they're obviously.
Maybe they weren't in that simulation, which we got the night before we came to the meeting, and in my judgment, it was better to show it to you than to not. So the continuous U-turns aren't gone.
Okay, so
And-
the U-turns will exist prior to the traffic light.
The U-turns would exist prior to the traffic.
Their signal is the new one.
The term continuous, we
Yes.
have never included true continuous U-turns because there simply is not nearly enough space. You have to have a dedicated lane receiving those U-turns that no other traffic can.
I understand,
Right.
there has to be a yield or a stop sign
Yeah.
on the
It-
discharge
the-
end.
The concept that we talked about initially is retained in the concept
And it
that
was
we saw.
in the flyovers.
I don't remember if it was or wasn't shown in the, I presume it wasn't if we didn't see any. But those are
When I saw
still,
the simulation,
They're
you
still
can
retained.
make a U-turn, but you
Yes.
can only do it, by, after the traffic light lets you do it. You cannot start that U-turn until the traffic light changes to green.
And I believe in the version that you're referring to that had a continuous turn lane, you had to be at least the third car in line to be able to make the
Right.
turn. If you're the fourth car, you were blocked, you wouldn't be able to turn.
It's
So that's not
correct.
really the definition of a continuous U-turn.
Well, no,
Because
because
you still-
remember, the U-turn also works when you have a green light. Okay, so it's not just when, you're right, when the red light occurs, you have limited chances, but you still have some chance. And then you have it,
yeah, but the only other thing I wanted to say was about Part A. Whenever it's the continuous U-turn, the ability to provide that concept isn't what makes the design work.
possibly, I don't.
Well,
know.
no.
I've not.
To use your term, factually, that's
That
not
I
what
haven't been
makes.
involved with.
That was a piece of a component
Okay,
that makes it work. Out of the 14 that were studied,
okay.
this is the design
I
that
also
works.
accept that the simulation we saw wasn't final, so I'm
Yeah,
waiting for
yeah,
the
yeah.
next version of the simulation.
I probably saw it in my head because I know it's still there. I just don't remember.
I hate to interrupt, but we were told that the U-turn was what made this intersection design concept work.
Boy, I just don't remember why we would say that.
It's not what makes it work or not work, it's that the U-turn movements included with those left turn movements give us a more acceptable level of service, a better level of service. It still works if you don't have them. I mean, because simply people.
They're
will make a
not
left instead of
significant
doing a
enough to
U-turn.
be the deciding thing to make it work or not.
Correct.
And I view the new U-turns as a safer U-turn than what you can make now. Because right now, you try to make a U-turn and you're turning into 2 or 3 lanes of traffic. So, I'm not arguing one point or the other.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
stating
if
that
we-
we have
if
a
we-
wider turning radius now for that U-turn, which could help facilitate not only cars, but trucks as well, so.
I view it as an incidental benefit for a few cars. But if we said that, John, I just don't remember the context.
But there will be.
It was-
We said
it was
it.
discussed as
Much
a
higher
component
level
of it.
U-turning happening at that interchange without those 2 lights on the north and south. That's
Right.
We gotta remember that.
It was also discussed about that right turn on red heading north on 29 as
That's-
being a key component to make.
And that is.
That
in
is
there.
critical.
That is in there.
And
That was not, that is in there.
And the pedestrians are gonna be gone. I mean, Brian and I are very
Well,
concerned about
yeah.
the pedestrians there.
We
That-
did look into that, and it is a continuous right turn, but there is a pedestrian signal phase
Right.
there. So it would be a right turn on red if somebody activates that pedestrian crossing. So pedestrians aren't getting run over.
Right.
In fact, it's actually very complex, but it is there. And it is a free flow movement unless somebody activates the fence.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
Because I don't want anybody to get run over either.
No. Wrap up. John?
That's fine.
Chuck.
I don't know that enough advertising is being done about these projects and their effects.
Okay.
There are people that I'm dealing with in Forest Lake and Hollymead that have no idea of the consequences of this interchange.
Okay.
And, you know, being on the panel, I look at it as to mitigate the impacts of these improvements, or specifically the grade separated interchange. But people need to know what's going to happen, because once it happens, it's, who are they going to look to? And they really need to look to the Board of Supervisors. And so it just needs to be put out, and having town meetings, I don't think does it.
Are these better community-based homeowner association meetings or civic league meetings? I don't know enough.
Well, we're trying.
About-
It's an interesting segue, because I held two transportation, whatever you want to call them, town hall meetings. And you're right. I mean, we only can reach the audience that's paying attention. You know, I've floated the idea with other supervisors and the county staff about putting up, you know, some of the LED signs now, you know, saying, hey, check out what's going on, Route29solutions.org, something like that, to get people to start paying attention, because the people traveling the corridor, when they're traveling the corridor, will pay attention. I'm going to hold as many town hall meetings as I can to try to give people the opportunity to look at stuff. But, you know, we had, Ken and I hosted one, we had about 100 people show up. Ann Malik and myself hosted one, we had about 20 people show up. And then the one that Diantha and I hosted, about 30 people showed up.
Do you have any objections at these meetings?
You know, I was going to say the biggest concerns were a lot of these ancillary. There was really no objections. It was concerns about these ancillary things that are not being thought of. The Brookmar and the Rio intersection. What are we going to do about that? You know, why aren't we accommodating bicycle amenities at the Rio intersection? Those kind of things were coming up. So there was a lot of, okay, you've shown me this. I understand. But hey, did you think of all these other things that are out there that are still floating around that aren't part of these projects? I brought this up last night because I think the county needs to get their hands around that now and figure out what's a priority and what's not.
Are you able to get to HOAs? If you were able to get to those HOA boards, I mean, maybe just specifically your district, but that might, I mean, they have a communication network to get to their residents.
Yeah, I'm working with some of the HOAs to go to the meetings and talk about the projects. But, I mean, some of them don't have HOAs. They just have neighborhood meetings that, you know, the Carsbrook, Northfield, Old Brook, and Huntington areas, they do not have any official meeting.
John?
And so, yeah.
John, I think we ought to go, I mean, meet a small group in somebody's living room, if somehow we can just get connected. Any ideas you all have about how to connect, outside of what the county or the city might do, I'm up for doing it. Between Joel and myself especially, I think we'll try to accommodate anything we can to help supplement what the county's doing, and I know what you're going to be working on, Chip. I mean, I've done that before, where you sit in the living room with 15 people and a cup of coffee and go through it.
And that's what we're trying to work on now. It's just, like, even HOA meetings, you get a 120 neighborhood or house neighborhood, and 10 people show up to the HOA meeting. And so you still have dozens of people who are not aware. So I think proactively getting signs up now, telling people you want to know more information, check it out. I mean, I think if we get information out on the corridor while people are traveling, that's going to capture the biggest audience. Trying to go to them will be helpful. Trying to hold living room meetings might be helpful. But at the end of the day, I can tell you, people don't have time to sit down and talk about stuff. They're pretty busy, and if they could access information online, the people who are very concerned are going to show up, but not the people who are going to be impacted on their average day. So
I just think, I mean, it's gonna be all of the above. Some would love to sit down and hear the hand-holding. Others, I just want to see it online. If I can't read it on my phone, I don't have time. Others want to tune in to this. And we have to get a group that really...
Your conference is scheduled to end in 2 minutes.
That's new. That will give us
So much for communications.
But a group of people that
See ya.
can give us all of the examples of
Well,
how to cast that wide net,
look.
because that's what it's going to take.
I'm willing to do anything
You bring up a
within
good
reason.
point, and I think it needs to be discussed at some point. Going into Forest Lakes is something I can't do. It's not my district, and I have to engage Ken.
I'm not running for anything, so I can go. But if you hear some, feel free to have anybody call me. I mean, and we'll try to do as best as we can. I do know these guys are holding a lot of the town meetings and doing what you can. That Chip's got a program he's getting ready to kick off, but I'm up for anything, John.
Does VDOT have road signs? Like,
We can try to track some down. We'll check in.
I think that's a good idea.
I would hope that the business owners would allow us to at least park those.
Everything's negotiable.
And I was just going to say, when it came to me, that it's been really interesting having those town hall meetings with John.
Are you finished, John?
I'm done.
Okay.
Sorry.
No problem.
Without a doubt, when you start the conversations with